was your week off?
A bit hectic last week, but a bit steady this week. We've prepared well, and we look forward to the second half of the year in particular, but also the trip to the West. We've got a chance to reflect and look at our first half of the year, and obviously be disappointed with some aspects of it, of course, because we haven't won a game as yet. But really looking for the second half of the year to make some more progress as a footy club. We know where we're going, we know where our vision is. It's hard work. We always knew it was going to be a tough battle, but we're looking forward to making some progress in the second half of the year.
Has it been tougher than what you thought it would be when you took on the job?
Well, yeah, you never expect you're going to get halfway through the year and you haven't won a game, but we're seeing some progress, and most of that's done behind the scenes, and we're looking forward to what can happen in the second half of the year. We know where we're going as a footy club, and we're actually really excited about the group that we're putting together. We added another two lads to that over the last week or so, in young Geordie from Tassie and Bryn from WA. So that adds to the depth and excitement of our group. So we continue to make progress, and hopefully that materialises into some wins in the second half of the year. But we're confident that we're on the right track, and just to the wider footy world, it doesn't look like that because we haven't registered as winners yet, but it's not too far away.
What about yourself and what happened against Port and the apology that followed? Have you had time to reflect on that yourself, and if so, how do you reflect on it?
Yeah, well, I went down onto the bench. We made, as you're playing games of footy and you've got a young group, you'll see a lot of the coaches, they're up and down from the best place to watch the footy is from up above, but the best place to actually communicate with your players is down at ground level, and sometimes you're trying to get a bit of both. But for those particular 2 weeks, the Essendon and Port Adelaide games, we'd made a couple of tweaks to the way that we'd played, and we decided it'd be best if I was down there to actually educate the players on some of those tweaks, and then you just get embroiled in the emotion of the game, and so I think it's nice and fitting that I just put myself in the box for the remainder of the year, and just don't put myself at risk. Without a doubt, we can't dismiss the fact that Fags and myself have been under enormous amount of pressure over the last 18 months, and just things build up. You don't even know that it's happening to you until you get into an emotional state, and then you react. And the best way to try to avoid that is to keep away from getting in a significantly emotional state, and that's probably better off being in the box than down on the bench.
So have you become more aware of that pressure from that you and Fags over the last, when these incidents happen, you're becoming more aware of the emotional build-up you might be taking?
Yeah, and listen, we can't. We got to keep it in perspective. I'm wearing a hat for a great man, and one of his most prominent sayings is, "Life isn't meant to be fair." He didn't promise that it's going to be fair, and in his particular case, it's hardly been fair to him. He's been dealing with the beast for 10 years. His family have, and it's just an absolute inspiration that he's shared that journey with so many people and raised so much money to try and curtail this dreadful illness, not for him, because there's not going to be a cure for Rowdy, but there might be future generations, and that's just an enormous sacrifice that he's made, and an inspirational commitment that he's made to community. And so when you compare that to the hardship that Fags and Fags is really, really good mates with Rowdy, and I spent a fair bit of my time at the Melbourne Footy Club with him as well. And when you compare what we've been going through compared to what he's had to deal with, then perspective is, life hasn't really been fair to me and Fags either. We've had to deal with that stress, but it's nothing compared to Rowdy. So it's just like roll the sleeves up, take whatever punches come your way and absorb them as best you can, learn from them as best you can, and keep committing yourself to the journey that you've got at your respective clubs, whether that's Fags and his journey with Brisbane and my particular journey here, and just do your very, very best in the circumstances.
I think most footy fans would understand that it's a highly emotional game, and on the bench, of course, you're involved in the game. But can you just confirm that what you said out into the ether rather than directly to match officials? Yeah,
and that's been that was what the finding was of the AFL. So it took 3 or 4 days to talk to the necessary people. But that was the finding of the AFL last Thursday.
You said at the start of the year, after the Webster incident, that you kind of needed to reinvent yourself, I suppose, in the way that you coached and sort of wear your heart on your sleeve as much and be in control of your emotions. Do you feel like you've taken a step forward in terms of being able to control?
Yeah, well, last week would suggest not, but I know I'm making progress. I'm doing a lot of work with the sports psych and doing a lot of things. There's just so much going on in our lives, and if we can just try and keep things in perspective and just avoid situations where you're in emotional or temperamental types of situations, which is really difficult because that's what we love about our game. The theatre of our sport is what attracts us all, whether we're a spectator, whether you're involved in media, whether you're a coach, whether you're a player. The theatre of the sport is the beautiful part about the game, and it's just reality TV in its most purest form. But that means we're all vulnerable at different stages to getting caught up in the emotion of that, whether we're a spectator, whether we're a coach, or whether we're a player, and just got to keep working on being the very, very best you can be in that space. But it's an emotional game. You're hugely invested, and particularly when you have the character and mindset of me, it's particularly challenging. I've just got to keep working on it and try to reduce the amount of times that I get caught up in those situations.
You still love coaching as much as you did when you were winning premierships?
Yeah, and part of the reason I came to North Melbourne, this game has been great to me. I remember young kid, chasing my dream as a 6 and 8 year old back in the bush, and had idols like Roger Merritt and Glenn Hawker from my hometown, and followed this pathway down to AFL footy, got the opportunity to play, and then the opportunity to be involved in the last 25 years as a coach. So that's been a really special journey, and the game's been great to me. And there was an opportunity to come back to North Melbourne that gave him a start right at the get-go in terms of my playing career, and the club was in a bit of strife in terms of direction, and we to the outside world we're still not going great, but I'm committed to the journey and the contribution I can make to assist us to get ourselves back up the ladder. And so that's a challenge, but it's a challenge that we roll the sleeves up. It can only be one team that's sitting on top of the ladder at the end of the year, and as my wife quite often says, part of the beauty is the actual journey itself. And so we're hoping that when we finally do get ourselves back into a challenging position where we can challenge for silverware, that the hardships that we've been through and the adversity that we've faced, whether that's individually or as a collective, that will be the reason why it's been so satisfying that we can return ourselves to a position of strength as a football club in this competition.
And was that part of the reason Nathan Jones came in the other day to have a chat to the group?
Well, Todd Viney and Nathan Jones had a really strong connection from their Melbourne days, and it's probably fitting because 6, 8, 10 years ago the Demons were in a very, very similar position to us. Carlton have been in that position, Port Adelaide have been in that position, Hawthorn have been in that position. Collingwood have been in that position only 3 years ago. They were second bottom of the pies, and so these things happen to all footy clubs over the journey, and just sometimes your playing group and your coaching group just needed to be reminded as you're going through some hard yards that there's been plenty before us that have gone through the hard yards and have ended up saluting. The most recent being obviously the Melbourne Footy Club, and that's why Jonesy was just such a good story, and a great contribution that he could make to just selling a message to our players.
You're talking to the umpires out there. You've had a week to look at the holding the ball stuff. What do you make of it, and how much of a difference will it have on the way that you coach and play the game? Yeah,
well, I think I was actually expecting it to be more significant. Whether it was the amount of free kicks, but I noticed that there was more free kicks, but it wasn't like, oh geez, that's gone over the top, because sometimes when you make change, whether it's, I know this full well from coaching, sometimes when you make change, the index needle goes from one side to the other, and so I was expecting perhaps an overreaction more than anything, but whilst I noticed it was a a productive and pleasing change. I didn't think it was over the top, and I didn't think it significantly influenced games. And I didn't see players, commentators, supporters getting overly frustrated with just a little bit of a tweak to it. So I think that's a productive thing for the game. And for us, we got the umps down today just to provide some sort of clarity around that, because we haven't played a game since the rule changes have been in. We've got a beautiful chance to have watched a few games last week to make a determination on it, but just wanted to get the umps down here to make some, give some clarity around the little bit of a tweak that they've made.
Now that you're past the first half of the season into the back stretch, where do things sit between the club and Cam Zero in terms of contract? Is that still where it's always been, or has there been anything updated?
I'm not actually up to speed with that, to be fair, but albeit I think Cam's keen on us to win some games of footy. We keen on him contributing to that, and we'll just see where that goes over the second half of the year. He knows full well that he's a required player. From what I'm led to believe, there's discussions happening between the club and his management, and but just how that materialises will just play out over the next 6 or 8 weeks, I'm sure.
Any clarity on Colby McKercher and his injury?
We want to be ultra conservative with him, really, in terms of he's had a little bit of history with that foot in the last 12 months. So we just don't want to take too much of a risk with him. We thought it might just be a 2-week injury leading up to the bye, and it didn't settle as well as we'd like it to. A little bit of soreness when he tried to run again. So it's just like just pull him back and make sure he's right. But he was running quite strongly today, and he'll continue to progress from here, and hopefully he's back on the track pretty soon.
Speaking of holding the ball, the new interpretation, would you ever get to the point where you'd coach your players not to get the ball first, so that they're put in that position where they could get done for holding the ball?
No, it's just the game is all about the Tommy Sherrin. So go and get it, and then deal with whatever pressure comes your way when you've got the ball. But I don't think there'll be any other club that'll be any different in terms of their approach to that.
On Saturday, how big a chance is this for a win, and how important is a win when you talk about the progress you're making? And
well, see, every game that you play, we went into the Port Adelaide game and the Essendon game thinking if we did this and this, we'd be a really good chance to win. And at half time of both those games, we're still in the game, and then that's where sometimes the frustration lies. That in a quick space of time, Marshall kicks 2 goals in the first 5 minutes from the boundary in the Port Adelaide game, and Essendon, I think, kicked 6 or 7 goals in the third quarter of the. So it's just making sure that we can maintain and sustain this effort and the performance for longer into games, and that's what we'll be searching for again this week against West Coast. Can we beat West Coast over there? Yeah, we can, but we're going to need to do a lot of things right, including can we sustain the pressure on the Port Adelaide, on the West Coast side for a lot longer than just a half of footy. And if we can, we'll give ourselves a good chance to win. But they're playing some good footy. They were really competitive against the Saints. They had a downer against Adelaide in Adelaide, but a lot of clubs have fallen foul of the Crows on their home deck, and they had a really good win 3 weeks ago against the Demons, who we rate really highly. So they're another example of a club that has battled in more recent times, but you can see the progress that they're starting to make as a footy club. So we're looking forward to the contest, and whether we win or lose, we're searching for the progress of the method of play that we want to play, and also the continued development of some of our younger players in particular.
Have you noticed full training today, I saw as well. That's positive.
Yeah. He sat Cam Zero on his backside there in one of the marking contests that they had. So listen, it's great to see him back. He'll that's his first full match practice training that he's had, and he'll probably do that for another 2 or 3 weeks and then return to play. So we're really excited for Griff. He's put a truckload of work in over the last 12 months, and we're really looking forward to him being back in our side.
Happy not to see Harley Reid this week in the Eagles job.
Yeah. He's just a beast of a player. It's a shame for the game. It's a shame for us too. Despite saying, will that help us with a couple of their they're good players out of their side. You know, their captain's out in Oscar Allen. Certainly it helps, but really, if you want to become any good as a footy club, you've got to play these sides when they've got their best going around. And so, strange enough, in a real weird sort of way, we'd probably prefer that Oscar and Harley are playing. So you get a genuine idea of where you sit as a footy club, but we can't do anything to control that. They're out, so we just play what's in front of us. But we've got more worries about ourselves than we've got about what's going on with West Coast. We've just got to get our brand of footy going and get some of our guys playing as well as they possibly can. And I'm sure if we do that, we'll find ourselves a victory pretty soon.
Would you like to be coaching Harley? In another world, he could have been in a North jumper.
Well, it's just a purely speculative question, isn't it? It's just like it hasn't panned out that way, and he's playing for the West Coast Eagles, and they get the benefit of that, but we get the benefit of Colby McKercher being a player for us. So we'll see where that goes. We'll make the best of what we can do with Colby, and I'm sure West Coast will make the best of what they can do with Harley.
How good is it to have Jai back this week?
Yeah, well, he's had a really interrupted year. You know, obviously missed the first game of the year, and then he's had a niggly little quad, which wasn't a significant muscle in his quad, but just a stabilising muscle that was just stopping him from being able to run with power and kick full distance. And that's why it was so teasing for both he and us that he should be right next week. So he continued to do most of the training, and then we just had to pull him back and just say, let's use the benefit of the bye to be an additional week that he could get himself right. And so it's great that the skipper's back, and hopefully he can have a really strong second half of the year for us.